Hi everyone. We'll just give it a couple more minutes to allow more people to join us, and we'll begin shortly. Right, I think we'll make a start. So, welcome to the IIRSM South East of England branch meeting. This is our November webinar session, and I'm delighted to welcome along Malcolm Hazel. Malcolm is the Technical Assurance Lead for the Clancy Group, and he's one of our members who has volunteered, I think, to share his knowledge with us today. So yeah, really happy to have Malcolm along. Just a few announcements. If you have any questions at all, please put them in the Q&A box and we'll answer them at the end. This webinar is being recorded and it will go on the Member Resource Hub at the end of the session. And if English isn't your first language, then please use the closed caption box in your toolbar. So with that, I think we'll hand over to Malcolm. Thank you very much, Malcolm.
Thank you, Lauren. Good afternoon, or even indeed good morning to some of our members. The sailboat, a safer behavioural principle. Hope that everyone can see the screen okay and you can hear me without any issues. Thank you for everyone for attending this brief presentation on the sailboat concept, which has been used for encouraging safer behavioural practices. So what is safety culture? Safety culture has had various definitions or tags applied to it over the years. It is as individual to the organisation as the individuals who work there. It tends to be one of those buzzwords that gets bandied around by the clients, asked for in new contract tenders, or requested for by the shareholders in performance reports. But does anyone here have a clear defining statement as to what they believe they understand what safety culture is? Just pop it in the chat and we can all compare it with other people's ideas or beliefs later. Safety culture is one of those areas where lots of people have a perspective or predetermined idea of what it should be. One of the clearest definitions I have heard recently about safety culture is the predominant or prevailing attitude, whether positive or negative, within an organisation towards occupational health and safety. But one of the simplest ways I've heard it used is it's what we do around here. And indeed, the levels of engagements of culture will vary from one organisation to another. But essentially, it's what we do every day without too much thought application to the process and an automated response. So some of you may be familiar with the Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a rising scale developed in 1943 with self-actualization depicted as the pinnacle of personal development, reaching the top of the pyramid. It's where the hierarchy indicates that people are motivated to meet or obtain several levels of increasingly higher or specific recognition and rewards. The basic lower levels of needs include factors like food, water, shelter, physical and mental security and clothing. And these must be met to a certain degree before we can fully move upwards towards total self-achievement, becoming all that we are capable of. But one of the key elements located in the lower foundations of this pyramid is safety needs. When first introduced, Maslow's hierarchy was presented much like the goals we would associate these days in a video game, with the individual working towards preset goals to unlock the next level and ascend upwards through the game, with each achievement or series of goals being met. But as we all know, life is a simple trek up a mountainside. It's more like a vast ocean, full of opportunities for meaning and discovery, but also danger and uncertainty. So in this choppy ocean of life, what we need is something a bit more substantial than a pyramid, something a bit more flexible and functional, something like a sailboat. The sailboat principle has been used in various applications, but the use of it in identifying the development of safety culture and behaviours within the workplace is a relatively new concept. It consists basically of 8 elements, and these individual collective elements can have their own zone of influence upon the sailboat, which in turn affects the boats, or in this case, the individual's performance, including their journey and destination. These factors all help develop and influence the individual's personal perception and engagement when it comes to positive or negative safety behaviour and performance. Some are easily controlled, but some will take more time and resource than others to develop. But with encouragement and regular monitoring, they all serve a purpose in the path to achieving a positive or required safety behavioural practice. While some of these elements can be positive or desired influences, others can be negative or detrimental to both the individual, the people they engage with, and the organisation for which they work for. So let's investigate these individuals' elements just a little bit deeper. The first element being water. Now, water constantly shifts around, but is the medium for which we need to allow the safe travel of that sailboat. This represents the safe working environment that we wish to have the individuals to feel safe to work within. It shouldn't be something to be feared, but a medium that can be enjoyed. And if the correct safety behaviour is practiced and observed, it can be something that can help continue everybody's journey. The steering wheel. Steering is the correct development or path that can often be the hardest one to take. It can be easy to veer off course when we become lost, but with the correct and safe behaviour in place, it allows the person and those affected by their working practices to perform safely and consistently. Setting a positive goal or destination is vital. Without a goal, we could easily become a pedestrian on a pointless journey. Otherwise, there's little point to the whole exercise, but by ensuring that the message of where we want to be is clear, obvious, and comprehensive to all, it allows people to follow that path and to be able to obtain a joint and achievable objective. It is essential that we regularly check our journey's route and progress at regular intervals through monitoring to establish where we are, where we want to be, and sometimes where we've come from. Leaks within that sailboat can be big or small, but no matter how significant, they can hinder the positive behaviour. Examples could be peer pressure, taking shortcuts, or not having the correct amount of resource to complete a job safely. The other issue with leaks is that once a sailboat starts taking on water, if the leak is not dealt with correctly and within a suitable time, that leak becomes unmanageable, causing the boat to sink. So dealing with negative influences towards positive safety behaviour swiftly and in a timely fashion, it keeps the risk of losing integrity down to a minimum. Now, the sails. No sailboat should be without a set of sails. And without some method of propulsion, no behavioural safety programme will gain any momentum. This also means that without a repeated means of gaining a positive safety behaviour, giving it a boost, or revisiting the effectiveness of that programme, that sailboat will come to a standstill. The acronym SCATE is often used to help define competency. Now, SCATE stands for skills, knowledge, attitude, training, and experience. Now, these all are disciplines that need to be encouraged to assist in developing positive and proactive safety behaviour. The compass represents the individual, but an individual is exactly that. An individual, or each person, is a factor with their own past experiences, knowledge, and judgments. In one scenario, a person may perceive their actions as totally innocent or helpful, whilst another person may allow themselves to be easily influenced by others, especially if no positive guidance or mentoring has been given. Clear and concise directions and information must be given, which points the individual to achieving best practice and the safest method in which to complete their tasks. Allowing best guesses to enter the scenario often leads to negative behaviour creeping in and overrunning the operation. And the weather. We can never plan for anything 100%, especially the weather. This represents those unknown factors that we have never had any prior knowledge or warning of. These events do not necessarily have negative connotations attached to them, but any unplanned event should prompt the individual to be aware enough that things need to stop. A re-evaluation is needed to be undertaken so that the safest course of action can be followed. There is a lot to be said for the phrase, fail to plan, plan to fail. And we all play a part in the safety of ourselves and others. So other boats upon the ocean can contribute, as well as giving people some positive feedback, a thank you, popping them an email and saying well done. Positive reinforcement by others, as well as passive monitoring, coaching and mentoring are all great examples. Simply asking someone, how do you do your job safely, may not seem to be such a wild question, but positive questioning can cause the person doing the task to stop and think about what they do on a day-to-day basis instead of simply doing business as usual or going through the motions. Never feel guilty of stopping someone you see if they're either struggling or doing the task incorrectly or unsafely, as one day they may even thank you for it. So we all need to influence each other positively. So having identified what factors we have an influence over and what we can develop, these areas of which we take notice of have a lot of influence on both the individual and the organisation. Sometimes it's just realising it's time to cast off the anchor and take courage. Set sail across the ocean. Despite what we've heard, despite what other people are doing, are we heading for the perfect storm? As the workforce grows, the organisation changes, and those valued members of the company achieve retirement, the new and younger generation who are stepping up into roles where they have a very high and valued accreditation and training certificates, but very little practical experience, much like a sailboat taking on a new crew. A positive safety behaviour is what many companies expect or demand, but without the correct steps, the correct planning, guidance and resources, and obviously tutelage from those with the experience, these are all factors that are required to achieve this. The journey can often be a stormy one, but the destination can be one that we all wish to achieve. So let's face this storm together. no matter what lies ahead of us. But why bother? Why bother with safety behaviour? Why bother with developing your safety culture within your organisations, within your companies? Positive and negative, or desired or non-desired safety behaviour within the organisation, it's a living thing. It grows and it spreads. It could be cultured or grown or ignored and diminished. Within the typical workforce, there exist three general groups of behaviour: the conformists, the in-betweeners, and the rebels. The conformists do what they're told. They don't raise questions. They plod along, happy to be within their own bubble. The in-betweeners, they're undecided. They look to others for guidance to see what they're doing, but they're happy to go along with the crowds. And the rebels, we all know these. They see rules as things or objectives to be broken. They want to stick it to the man, ask the question, but why should I? And are a lot harder to develop safety culture within. These groups generally form a 10 to 80 to 10% ratio split between the behaviours of your workforce and team. So the conformists, the top 10%, these are the groups that require the smallest amount of influence and leadership. They're already doing the right thing, looking after themselves, working productively and staying safe. These people report the incidents and near-miss events. The rebels, the lower 10%, these are the harder group to influence. They don't want to be told. They don't engage with safety leadership. The system is wrong. But what about me? Every company and organisation will have their own process and view on how to deal with these individuals. Some ideas are good and some less so. But managing these individuals is essential rather than reprimanding or dismissing them, because all we do is release them back into the job market for another company or individual to experience the same problems with. Correct management, correct safety leadership are essential. But it's the majority, the 80%, the in-betweeners. This is the area that we should really focus on. With correct mentorship and guidance, coaching, and most importantly, praise. I mean, when's the last time that someone generally came up to you and thanked you for doing your job correctly? We tend to focus on the negatives and less on the positives. So this group can often be a quick win for any corporation, group, or organisation. We need to take a stronger stance on safety leadership. So to make any positive impact on the in-between crowd, we could, and in some cases should, strive to become leaders in safety ourselves. As the undecided parties make up the majority of those who need the influence to be positive. This will then enable the individuals themselves to allow themselves to make their own choices further down the line. So can we name a great leader? Can we name someone who's either motivated or inspired us? What made those individuals different from the rest? What qualities do you think that safety leaders should have? In your work at home, do you mentor or educate, inspire, teach, assist, or help others? If you've answered yes to any of the above, the chances are you're already probably a leader without knowing it. And it's this positive leadership that has the most influence. The highest level of standards of impacts on these three groups: the conformists, the rebels, and especially the in-betweeners. By being a safety leader ourselves, we set out that ripple in the pond, the positive engagement. We encourage it in others, and that ripple has a widening effect. And with the correct resources and time and management at the helm, we can make a positive influence upon the organisation. But Nelson Mandela, one of the world's and history's great leaders, he's quoted as saying, "There is no human passion to be found in planning small and setting for a life less than the one you are capable of achieving." Which basically boils down to, if you set your goals small, your accomplishments would also be that small. If you set your goals big and wish to have a wider influence, then that's what your rewards would be. So let's all step up and become leaders. Steer that sailboat that I mentioned before. Give a positive influence on those that require some guidance or helping hand to make the world a better place, to make the environment a safer environment for everyone to work in. People will want to come to work because we've created that safer environment for them. If the environment is negative or less positive than it should be, then this would again be an influence upon the workers to possibly increase in absence from work, not willing to do their tasks, or more importantly, stick within compliance and procedures. So a leader should be likable, should be empathic, should be aspirational, know the goals, know that what they want to achieve. They need to be disciplined because no one wants to follow a loose cannon. They need to have experience. Now, experience is one of those things you can't learn from an online course or by sitting in a classroom. It's by getting your boots dirty and going out and engaging with the workforce at all different levels. All the ones from the people at the coalface to the directors and the boards and the people at the top of the company. That experience will grow in time. It's something that needs to be nurtured and needs to be grown, but it also needs to be encouraged at every single level. And most importantly, leaders need to be responsible. You are setting an example. You are becoming a figurehead, whether it's for the safety leadership of your organisation or those within your team. You have a badge of honour to wear, and we do that every single day, sometimes without realising it. Leaders, no matter what their role or level within the company, will all have an influence on those that wish to engage with them. So be a positive influence and encourage others. Like a stone or a rock being thrown into the pond, the bigger the rock, the bigger the ripples, and the larger the influence that that person can have on those that work around them. So make it a positive one. It may not be the largest influence, but at least it's something. It's a step in the right direction. Step into a leadership role as part of your life. Take full ownership of your decisions and actions and become a positive influence. Strive every day to inspire others with your determinations and your strengths. Now, that was told to me when I first started my health and safety career by my old safety manager, Alan Clouter. He was a wise old man who always came out, usually daily, with a gem, a little nugget of wisdom. And I was smart enough. If I wasn't smart enough to remember them, I used to jot them down in my work diary. But coming towards the end of my presentation, I just wonder if I can influence any of you that have decided to listen to my presentation. So I'd ask all of you, think of any number between 1 and 10. Now multiply that number by a factor of 2. Just simply double it. Now multiply that new number by 5. This is generally where I lose people. So I'll give you a few seconds to either crack out the calculator or jot it down. Subtract 1 away from your new number. And this should leave you with either a single or a double-digit number. All I want you to do is remember the last digit of that number. Now think of that number, visualize it in your head. With some luck, some good fortune, and a little light sprinkling of fairy dust, we'll see whether I've managed to influence you. Think about number 9. Safety leadership and positive enforcement of that leadership is something that we can all do, but it's something that we should choose to do because it's the right thing to do. We've all got a duty of care, especially in the UK. We all have a duty of care for those that are affected or could be affected by our actions through work. It's the right choice. And it's something that some people grasp and other people don't. But thank you for your time and attention, everybody. If you've got any questions, I'll be available. But pop them in the chat or in the Q&A.
Hi everyone. So yeah, if you could pop any questions you have in the Q&A box for Malcolm, or if you would like to unmute and ask a question, we can do that for you. Just raise your virtual hand. That'd be great. I'll start by kicking things off with a question then, Malcolm. So what do you feel the biggest influencing factor on safety behaviour in the workplace is?
Big question there, Lauren. The biggest influence, it's got to be whatever you want to develop within any organisation, it's got to be supported from the top down. But that message needs to be consistent all the way through the chains of management down to the operatives, down to your part-time workers, down to your cleaning and your security staff. That message needs to be a consistent one. It needs to be not taking anything away from anybody, but it needs to be a simple one because I've seen it before. Lots of companies will produce a 48-page, 64-page, this is our safety mission. No one, especially these days, has got time to sit down and read through a document that you could use as a doorstop. It needs to be a simple message, but an effective message. But it needs to be set out from the top, the board, the directors. And then from that, it needs to be observed and monitored at every step and stage all the way down.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So we just have a question in the chat. Could you kindly explain again the bit about how you might influence us? So
what, me as an individual,
yes.
or as I say, well, first off, I mean, I don't know whether it's going back to the pandemic or it's the way that work culture has evolved over the past 3-4 years, but we're doing a lot more business now remotely, whether it's meetings or whether it's webinars or whether it's online learning and training. We're just starting to lose that human factor, which is one of the things that back when I was working and I was on the tools, it was one of the things that I used to enjoy. I used to enjoy going to work and engaging with my work colleagues. I used to find out what people did at the weekends. We're losing the personality of the workforce and seem to be more focusing on the performance of the workforce. Asking someone how they are, asking how their family are, what they did at the weekend. football teams or soccer teams for some of our international members, finding out about the person instead of trying to find out what they do within the organization. That will come. That will come from engaging with them. It can be one of those crucial factors. I mean, when I asked, in fact, I asked last week, when was the last time that someone said, thank you for doing that? And it was, I can't remember, because it's expected now. You've been given a job, you've been given a task, you're expected just to complete that task. Just by saying simple things like thank you and giving them some positive feedback. If it's negative, you can give them that feedback, but in a positive way. I like what you did with the report, but next time, have you considered putting in a SWOT analysis or breaking down your top 3 points a little bit further?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Hopefully that's clarified that to the attendee who asked that question. So we have a couple more in the chat. So to assist with achieving safety behaviours, communication is vital. Have you found that companies' employee engagement is lacking? And have you seen this shift, a shift in this over the years?
Right. No. Excellent question. It depends. It depends on the organisation. It varies between the culture that already exists there. It also it depends on how serious that company wants to push it. Whether it's something that the company wants as an organisation, or whether it's something they want to put on their performance reports or to appease stakeholders or clients. It's communication is key. But again, it needs to be a common language. That we need to address the right level of people at the right times with the right language, because your people on the your people on the tools, your people on the factory floor, they're there because some of them want to be there. Some of them will want to progress, but only by engaging with them and setting up that line of communication will you find, again, going back to my my diagram of the conformists, the in-betweeners and the rebels, you'll have a 10-80-10 split. Okay, and now if you've got 80% of your workforce that don't know whether they want to progress further up the management ladder, or whether they want to take a team leader position, or whether they're happy with what they do. It all depends. But without setting up that line of communication, without engaging with the people, you won't find the answers. Forget about surveys, because your culture within your workforce, it's constant, it shifts. It's like the ocean in the sailboat concept. By the time you've got the results of your survey and you've analysed all the data and you've crunched all your numbers, your culture's changed. So what we were doing last week, it'll be different from what we're doing today. It'll be different next week. So that your culture is an ongoing, evolving, living beast.
Yeah, that's really really useful. Someone's just made a comment about sending out a survey in the chat as well. As we're constantly being asked to prove we are addressing health and safety, what's the best way to record efforts that are being made to address the culture? They mentioned that they recently sent out a survey. As it may reduce the impact, but what other ways of recording can be used in that instance where the culture is always shifting?
Right. So instead of looking at lagging indicators, look at the now. Look at the now. Culture. In some areas we use the ABC analysis, where the A is your activators, your B is your behaviour, and your C is the consequences. by sending out a positive message. Instead of focusing, a lot of companies, a lot of organizations will focus on the negative. Last year we had 12 accidents, and lots of companies will use root cause analysis, the Swiss cheese factor, where it's if all the holes in the cheese align, that's when, and you can poke a stick through them, that's when you have an accident. How many times do those holes align and it's a positive factor where that job has been completed, that task has been completed without any error? So instead of focusing on the negative side, focus on the positive side and spread the positivity within the workforce. Well done stories is what I like to call them. John was engaging with a customer, and that customer was so happy with John's performance that they decided to have repeat business. Bill and Ted were working out working out on the building site, and they didn't have an accident. But those are a lot of the positive factors tend to get ignored because people, some organisations will take the attitude, but they should be doing that anyway. Without the comparison, without focusing on the negative, how would we understand what we are meant to be doing if it's not reported correctly?
And I guess some of those sort of focusing on the positive is a good way of engaging senior leadership. Do you have any other advice on engaging senior leadership when they're in supporting safety and engaging with safety when their main priority is profit and growth?
Don't take no for an answer. It's quite easily to be dismissed, or it's right. We understand what you're saying, but we haven't got the time, we haven't got the resources, we haven't got the availability right now. Don't take no for an answer. Go back the next day. Go back in the afternoon. Keep banging on the door, because if you've got a constant drive, again, it's that stone and the ripple effect. If they realise that you're not going to go away and you want that change, if you want something so badly that you will keep on approaching whoever you need to approach. Now, within your organisations, it will be different. Each organisation is established differently. You'll either have a board or a single director, or you could have stakeholders or investors. It could be a self-run organisation. It's all different variables, but there will be one or a small group of people that will have the most influence. Those are the ones to engage with. Those are the ones to annoy. Those are the ones to take a cup of I've walked into a boardroom with 2 cups of coffee and saying, right, I've got a black coffee for me and I've got a milk and 2 sugars in one. Who wants it? That person that sticks their hands up, oh, I'll have it. That's the person to go for.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. I think we've got one more question in the Q&A. In your experience in the 3 categories you stated, the conformists, the rebel, and the in-betweeners.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could each of those groups have a rebel? And in your experience, are new recruits the more challenging rebels, or the staff who are retiring?
Oh, very good question. Right, within those groups, you will get a subset of groups which usually follow the same ratio model. So within those groups, you will get the 10%, the conformists will be the 10%, the ultra conformists. We all know those, the Arnold Rimmers of the world. That it doesn't say that on my clipboard, so you can't do it. You will then have the 80% in-betweener conformist, and they're only doing it because the other people are doing it. And then you will have the 10%, the rebellious conformist, that knows that they've got to be doing it right, but they're doing it with an area of resentment. Whether it's the fear factor or peer pressure, or they've witnessed people being disciplined, or the way that the organisation will treat those individuals that step out of line or don't wish for conformity or want to bend the rules slightly, though you will have a subset within each of those groups. Yes, no, that's fantastic question.
Yeah, really great. What's your take on whether it's the new recruits or the retirees who are the more rebellious?
Oh, you can have a lot more influence on the new recruits, because if you get them fresh from day one. Now, I'm not talking about school leavers. I'm talking about people that have come over from different companies. They've been within the same industry, but they've come over from another organisation. Getting that message from day one. This is what we do within our organisation. What you've done is lovely, and it's great, and it's fantastic, and we appreciate that, and we acknowledge it. Remember, positive feedback. But in this company, this is how we do things. You will have more of, and then again, it's not just through the induction and the probation period. It's constantly going back, reviewing and monitoring the individual's performance to see whether because they might not even understand. It might be a failure of communication. It could be cross communication, where they're being told one thing and being influenced by the old retirees that say, no, if you don't want to do it like that, you want to do it like this because it's quicker. My grandfather, God rest him, used to tell me, if you want to find a quick way to do something, ask a lazy man how to do it, because that lazy individual will find every single shortcut possible to achieve minimum effort.
That's great, thank you. That's a good note to finish on, I think, for today. So yeah, I'd like to thank Malcolm for his time, and thank you all for attending and giving up your lunch hour. We'll give you 20 minutes of your day back. Thank you ever so much. See you again soon.
Everybody.
Take care.